Hey everyone, welcome. It's Baron, and this video is going to be a little different than the usual videos that I put on my channel. I'm going to be walking you through the process of crafting a very specific pair of boots that I needed to make for an upcoming Antiquarian ward build that I've got. Now, as I'm sitting here recording this piece, the crafting process is done. I do have a set of raw footage that spans a couple of hours that is obviously not appropriate for a YouTube video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to condense it down to the more important pieces, and this modern version of me will just interject in between each stage to explain what it is that I'm going to be doing in that stage. I will be drastically speeding up steps like the alt spamming, which take several minutes, and I will be skipping altogether extraneous steps that you can kind of infer. Things like going to Faustus, buying the Crusader's Exalted Orbs, buying Harvest Juice, going out and getting more gold, all that stuff. I'm just going to skip that entirely. You can assume that that happens in between. Just to show you the convoluted process that we're shooting for here. The end result, the desired end result, it needs to be a ward base. This is a riff on a ward loop type build. It is not exactly like old school ward loop, but similar enough that if you're familiar with it, you can basically think of this as ward loop to have an idea of why I'm trying to get what I'm trying to get. So it needs to be runic sabatons, the best possible ward base. It needs to have T1 or 2, preferably T1 life and T1% ward, and it needs to have an elevated Crusader cooldown mod. And this whole flowchart right here is about how do we make that happen. The central feature is going to be recombination, as you can see, and the main problem that we have to overcome is in something called exclusive modifiers. So if you are unfamiliar with the recombinating process, it used to exist in Sentinel League, was taken away, and then reintroduced with many changes. One of the changes that constitutes both a buff and a nerf to the recombination process of slamming two items together and getting some of each mod on the resulting item is this idea of exclusive modifiers. So GGG attempted to nerf recombinators by disallowing more than one exclusive modifier on a resulting item. This was in order to prevent things like 3 different essence mods, 3 different fractured mods, 3 different Alva Temple mods all winding up on the same item. So a nerf in that regard. It wound up being something of a buff though, because just the way that the mechanics of recombination work mean that if you can stack an item with a variety of these exclusive mods and then throw it into the recombinator, you can actually force the process's hand and not quite deterministically, but very close to deterministically cause it to pick the actual prefixes and suffixes that you want in the resulting item. Let's work backwards so that you can kind of understand why we're taking the early steps, because the early steps are all about setting up these later steps. So again, I want life, I want percent ward, I want elevated cooldown. Well, elevated cooldown is one of these exclusive modifiers. So we're able to leverage exclusive modifiers by including a bunch of them in recombination so that only one of them can be picked and the rest get discarded, but that winds up working against us here. What is usually a buff to our deterministic ability is working against us because elevated influenced modifiers count as exclusive. So we can't do recombination with these, at least not cheaply. I spend a million divines on this, but it would be even more expensive trying to recombine with the influenced modifier already elevated, because you couldn't do any of this kind of guaranteeing or near guaranteeing of getting the other mods you want. So ultimately what we need is we need the item right before the end, the penultimate, just right before we get to the end, is what we need is an item that has life, ward, a random Crusader suffix, and the tier 1 cooldown suffix. So tier 1 is the one below elevated. And at that point, we apply an Orb of Dominance. It's a 50-50, and we hope that the random Crusader suffix is deleted and the T1 cooldown is upgraded to elevated. It could go either way. So when you apply an Orb of Dominance, if it's got 2 influence mods on it, one goes away, one gets elevated. So we are shooting for with our recombination, we want something that has life, ward, and a random Crusader suffix, as well as the Crusader's tier 1 cooldown. In order to get that, let's move back up from stage 3 back up to stage 2. What are we going to feed into the Recombinator to make sure that we get those 4 specific modifiers? Life, ward, any random Crusader suffix, and T1 cooldown. Well, over here, we need something that, I had T... Don't worry too much about this. I'm actually going to change that to T1 because we did change that in the end. We need something that has life, percent ward, and the random Crusader suffix on the one hand, and on the other hand, for the second feeder at this stage, we need 2 feeders to go into the Recombinator. The second feeder needs to have cooldown as a suffix, and one of the 2, either ward or life, as the prefix. And so that's still hard to do. How are you going to get a tier 1 prefix and a Crusader suffix? How are you going to get and have it be a rare item so that you can multi-mod? Remember, the key of this is that we need to add a bunch of these exclusive modifiers onto the item, which means that we cannot recombinate with magic items. We need this to be a rare item that only has 2 modifiers on it, and then we can multi-mod on top of that. So one of them, 2 or 3 mods. One of them needs to have the random Crusader suffix, one of them needs to have the cooldown suffix, but they both need to have at least 1 and preferably more tier 1 prefixes. It is going to be very inefficient to get that by alt spamming, chaos spamming, essence. If we still had tier 1 life essences that actually lined up with tier 1 life, we could do it a little bit easier, but right now there's no easy way to do it, so even the ones that appear at stage 2 here, stage 2 feeder 1 and stage 2 feeder 2, we're going to have to recombine to get even those somewhat, at least one of them. The easy one, actually, the one that we don't have to recombine, is the random Crusader suffix. If you don't care what the suffix is, that makes life a lot easier. So what we do here is we alt spam until we get tier 1 life or tier 1% ward. Once you get it, you have to use a regal orb on it to make it rare. Remember, you're doing this on a magic item, and in order to apply an exalted orb on it, which we're going to do in a second, you need it to be rare. So you have to regal it, and then you have to annul whatever you added with that regal. It's a 50-50. And if you annul your tier 1 life or tier 1 ward, whatever it is, you've got to start over and alt spam again. But if you are able to annul off whatever you regaled onto it, you are left with a rare item with a single modifier. You apply a Crusader orb, a Crusader exalted orb to that, you get a random suffix. You're probably not going to get the cooldown suffix that we want. On the flip side of that is the portion we do have to recombinate because you want a specific Crusader suffix. So in order to get this side, the feeder that has a tier 1 prefix and the cooldown specific suffix, that one you've got to feed a couple of items into the Recombinator. So now that we've worked it backwards with this kind of convoluted chart, it may help you to see the process organized stepwise in order from beginning to end. So let me switch over to that, and might help you kind of understand. So for starters, we need to understand that the thing that we want, again, is a pair of boots. They are ward boots. They will have elevated cooldown, tier 1 life, tier 1% ward, and that doing this, we're going to do it in 3 stages. The first 2 of these stages will involve, some of them will involve recombination, all to prepare that 3rd stage where we get to the Orb of Dominance. So the very first part, stage 1A, I'll call it here, we're going to prepare what I'm calling a feeder item, just something that's getting fed into the recombination process. And this feeder item, all it needs is the T1 prefix, either ward or life. Doesn't matter. As you'll see, I do have one that happens to have both, but it doesn't matter. This process would work if you just had one of the T1 prefixes. It would work just fine. And then any random Crusader suffix. How will you get that? You'll get that by alt spamming until you hit the T1 life or percent ward. You will then make it a rare item by regaling it and then you have to annul it so that it is a rare item with only one mod. So this is crucial. You can't just, prefixes cannot be changed and scour it. That will change it back to a magic item. Scouring is a process that has the ability to change the rarity of an item, whereas annulling does not. So we have to regal and annul and get lucky and annul off whatever thing that we added. We have to start over if we annul our T1. From there, once we've got our rare item with one modifier, the T1 prefix, we will multi-mod it, so that's 2 divines down right there, and we will fill up the prefix slots, so there's 1 prefix already, and then we will craft 2 exclusive modifiers. These kind of June unveiled crafted modifiers are good examples of them. And then with only suffixes available, only suffixes open, you'll hit the item with a Crusader Exalted Orb, and you will get some random Crusader suffix, probably not the one that we're looking for. That is stage 1. You now have a feeder item that has a tier 1 prefix and a random Crusader suffix. Part B of that feeder process is you need a different item. You need the other tier 1 prefix, whatever you didn't hit the first time. If you hit life, you need ward now, and vice versa. Plus, you need the Crusader suffix, the specific cooldown one. And this one, in order to do it, we're going to do recombinating at this stage. We have to recombinate even to get this far. So we're going to start with 2 different ward boot bases. We're going to apply Crusader influence to both of them with a Crusader Exalted Orb and not care about what modifiers we get. You alt spam, you make them normal items, you make them magic, and you alt spam one of them for the tier 1 prefix that you didn't have before, life or ward, and then you alt spam the other one for tier 1 cooldown. We do this process again where we multi-mod both items, and then we fill up with as many exclusive prefixes and suffixes as we can, and we are going to shoot maximum chance of success is if we have 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes on each item. We recombine them, and we have a high chance of getting a feeder item that has both the other prefix, the other tier 1 prefix that we need, and the cooldown suffix. So at this stage, hopefully we have 2 final feeder items ready to go. One that has tier 1 prefix and random Crusader suffix, and the other that has the other tier 1 prefix and the cooldown suffix. We will once again, and this is a lot of multi-modding, a lot of divines down the drain, we will multi-mod both of these feeder items, craft our exclusive prefixes and suffixes like before, and this time there should be more mods on each item, so we should be able to have a minimum of 2 prefixes and 3 suffixes. The more the merrier. Recombine these and hope for all 4 mods: life, ward, cooldown, and a random Crusader suffix. It is very likely that you will hit this, but then we get to the dicey part. This is the final recombine we have to do, as long as we then apply the Orb of Dominance and it elevates the cooldown. If it fails to elevate the cooldown, if it elevates the other modifier instead, we have to go back to a previous stage and we have to source new bases and all that sort of stuff. But if it does hit the Orb of Dominance, it is effectively done, and we will multi-mod it from there. Now for this first step on the left here, by coincidence, just I was able to get an item on trade and null it down that happened to have high tier life and ward. So the way that I would do it in general would be that I would alt spam regal up, annul down for one of these mods. As it turned out, I had a rare item with 2 of these mods. The principle is the same, it's just that with 2 of the mods you're slightly more likely to get a success. So what you're going to see here is the item that already has 2 of the mods, as though I had alt spammed it, but in this case I had just annulled it down from trade. But I'm going to take the same next step. I'm going to use multi-mod to block the prefixes, make sure that there is no available prefix, and then slam a Crusader Exalted Orb. Evasion rating while focused, and I'll do a low tier to not waste money. And then I will craft one of the Elemental and Chaos Res mods, which is also guaranteed to be exclusive. So moving on to the right side of the screen, if I want to get that stage 2 feeder 2, the one that has some tier 1 prefix and the cooldown suffix, I'm going to need to recombine to get there. So I need to start with 2 different Crusader influenced runic sabatons. So I'm going to need to spend money and apply Crusader's influenced orbs to each of them. And one of them I'm going to spam, alt spam for the prefix. The other one I'm going to alt spam for cooldown. So I'll just do one at a time. Slam this one first. Fizzes extra lightning. I don't feel bad about that. So this part will be sped up if I include it in the video at all. But we're just going to go ahead and... That is tier 2 cooldown recovery rate, so close but no stuffed monkey. Depending on what time... Oh man, you rolled 35 move speed. If I was going for the mirror tier craft, that would be one of the ones that I'd have to go for that base, but whatever. Tier 1 Chaos Res and Tier 1 Life. Motherfucker. So here's the thing. Oh god. Oh man, so many people would be so happy to have this. The life I can take. But I have to, there's no outcome for me here where I want the Chaos Res. Why? Believe it or not, I have to have a very specific amount of Chaos Res for this build. I have to try and null off chaos here, which is depressing. Imagine rolling you alt spammed into T1 life and T1 chaos res, and you have to annul the chaos res. That never happens, but we try, and it failed. That's what I get, right? For being ungrateful. Ungrateful for my luck. That's why I failed to annul it. Another 35 move speed. Jesus Christ. Oh man. Another 35 move speed. Fuck me. Pardon. Jesus. That's obnoxious. I'm being punished for my insolence in only accepting... Okay, alright. We rolled a T1 ward. We'll try to null that off. Because ideally you'd have ward as one of them. Okay, we got it. T1 ward is done there, so we move on to another set of influence boots. We have to apply the orb to it, and then alt spam that for the cooldown this time. So let's go ahead and slam it. 5 and 44 to hit the cooldown right off the bat. We do not get it, so back to the drawing board.
Three hours later.
At some point, I'm gonna have to look at something else just so my eyes don't. Oh, what? You glaze over and I miss it. That's hilarious. So okay, the good news is we don't have to try and YOLO annul it because it's only one mod. So we actually finally get to move on. Now that I've got my two items, one with cooldown, one with a tier 1 prefix, I go to meta mod the item, put those exclusive mods on to do some blocking, and what do I find? Oh, dip. It's magic. It's magic. That's a problem. Yeah. Or no, I need to regal once and then annul once and get lucky. So I should not have been rolling over those other tier 1 life and tier 1 life and tier 1 wards. So for each of these, I've got to attempt to regal it and annul so that they are rare. Like, there's a decent chance of me hitting, but man, if I lose this cooldown one, that's going to make me depressed, because at least I've got ward waiting in the wings. But alright, regal it, annul it. Ugh, that hurts. That hurts. Well, at least this one is ready to go. Well, back to the drawing board on this. It took us a while to hit that cooldown mod first time around. I can only hope we just get a little luckier this time. Oh mean, come on. That's a little hilarious, right? I did ask to get lucky this time. Well, real luck is going to be if I can annul, regal, annul. So just to... it went away anyways. Okay, well, there's cooldown again. We got a annul, regal, annul. Annul, regal, annul. Okay, got that. Good. Considering how long it took to get cooldown the first time around, we got it twice again pretty quick. And we're able to do the annul, regal, annul trick. So now we're going to make each of these have 4 total mods, 2 prefixes, 2 suffixes, and they will only be comprised of the 2 mods we want, plus exclusive prefixes and suffixes. The prefixes and suffixes each have an 11% chance to get 2 only, which is not great. Okay, after 3 crafted mods, so now we get 2 prefixes, and we know that evasion rating while focused is exclusive. And we know that life and regen together is exclusive. I probably am not going to have enough gold for this recombination, so I may need to take a break. I had to purchase too much stuff in between. So here comes a stage where it's a pretty high chance of success. We're going to recombine cooldown with life, and like we could still fail. I think there's something like an 8% chance of outright failure. Somewhere in there. Somewhere between 4 and 10% chance of outright failure. I'd have to do the exact math. But it's low. Like, it's very likely that what we're going to get when we recombine these is a ward base with maximum life, cooldown recovery, and an exclusive modifier. So let's try it out, and here we go. There's the life, there's the exclusive, and there's the cooldown. Problem solved, right? So now I've got something for the stage 2 feeder 1 ready to go, and I've got something over for stage 2 feeder 2 that I just need to multi-mod up and get it prepared so that it's got 4 exclusive modifiers on it. Both feeder 1 and feeder 2 will have 4 exclusive mods, and then we can try slamming them together. We're going to do up to 3 mods, and then a suffix and a prefix. So the suffix will be one of you, and the prefix will be you. So I believe these are prepared to go. So again, ideal, like super ideal, would be to see 100% ward, 129 max life, cooldown recovery, chance to avoid being frozen. That's the ideal. Close second to that would be to see 110 life, 100% ward, cooldown recovery, chance to avoid being frozen. Any outcome that does not have some combination of those 4 modifiers is not quite a back to the drawing board, but a gotta do something else. So here we go. Can we get the 4 mods we want? Life, ward, cooldown, frozen. Got the mods we want. We are hoping to see that increased cooldown recovery rate go up into the high teens. I think it caps out at 20. And we're hoping to see that avoid frozen go away. If the avoid frozen stays, bad. Have to figure something out. So, as Chris intended, we close the eyes. Hit it. Motherfucker. Clearly the Orb of Dominance did not go my way. It elevated the wrong modifier, and of course we can't use that modifier with the wrong thing elevated, that is now considered an exclusive mod. So I had to do some fancy footwork here, which I'll show briefly, to get rid of that mod and get a new influenced Crusader mod by use of prefixes cannot be changed and the harvest bench to reforge, guaranteeing an influenced suffix. That way we could start halfway down the process rather than going all the way back to the beginning. We could at least salvage that base, have some prefixes we wanted, and have a random Crusader suffix. We would just have to get cooldown after that. I'm going to take care of recreating a cooldown pair of boots first. So this one is going to get recombined with something that has cooldown. So do I just try to roll cooldown on this one? I think maybe. So put this off to the side and then roll over it, and then go back to looking for cooldown on this pair. Because like Crusader's Exalted Orbs are expensive. If they were 40, 50 C, I would keep this. But at 250, 300 C, I want to keep this base. So we roll. Back to rolling, and I hit cooldown again. Okay. Take that. Can we annul away from it? Can we annul the movement speed? We can. Can we regal and annul that regen? We can. Why? Okay. I'm not going to complain. That was fine. 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 Okay. High sixes. So we can afford to recombine it. This is again, there is a possibility of failing this step, and either way, we're losing a Crusader's Exalted Orb when we do this. Either way. Crusader's Exalted down the drain when we do this, but it's possible that we lose the Crusader's Exalted and we have to, you know, go back immediately and resource a base. Let's find out. Can we get ward and cooldown on the same base? There's the ward, and there's the cooldown. Okay. Forge influenced rare item, check, with random modifiers, well, except for the prefixes, including an influence mod. So let's see what we get. It'd be ideal if it doesn't fill up the suffixes. I think that would be bad. We got the lower tier cooldown recovery rate. That's really bad. That's really bad. Why did I not notice that until just now? I was focused on something else. That's really bad. This is the one outcome that's really bad and causes money. We can't elevate using that, though this cannot appear on the same item as the tier 1 cooldown. I've got to do it again. Ugh. I've got to do, can have 3 crafted modifiers again. And oh god, and I've got to reforge influence again, because it's the one thing that could have rolled a non-tier 1. Ugh. Because we want to be able to recombine this with this. God, I'm using so many defines. On average, we just hope it's a crappy, you know, cannot be ignited, cannot be frozen type of suffix mod. Okay, prefix cannot be changed. Go. Redemption. Redemption. We We hit the 5 in 44 chance of the worst possible outcome, and we hit the 5 in 44 chance of the best possible outcome. Redemption! So, now what? So we've got this base, which we're going to have to multi-mod up. We'll do... Yeah, and this will be able to have 6 mods. We'll do multi-mod, a random prefix like this one, and then a final suffix for 3 and 3. And then... Wait, no, I can't use this now. What? No, I can't use it. Unless... Wait. No, I can't. I need a base somewhere that has not this mod. So I am gonna have to go spend more money. This might end up being a good thing in the long run. I get to retain this excellent base that has perfect rolls on ward and life at the moment, but it is kind of bad news that I have to source an all new base because I'm not rolling over this. I'm not rolling over something that I successfully recombined to have ward and cooldown, but this is like my backup if shit hits the fan. I need a new base. So at this stage, I just repeat the step from earlier of getting a non-influenced pair of boots and alt spamming for a T1 prefix, and then slamming a Crusader Exalted Orb to get any random Crusader suffix. Now this one, I'm definitely going to go prefixes only because it is not influenced, and there's 100% perfect roll tier 1, obviously. Can I retain it? Nope. Keep going. Since this is not influenced, there are no suffixes that I want. I only want prefixes out of this. There's tier 1 life. Come on, give me all the sun and block. Alright, we got that. So now we've got to regal annul. We've got to hit that percent increased ward. We do. Okay. So the goal here is we hit this with a Crusader Orb to get something random. And then we multi-mod it up like we did. We multi-mod this one up like we did. And then we recombine them. The fact that this one has 2 desirable prefixes makes the end result ever so slightly more likely. We're at a very slight advantage compared to if we had not previously done a recomb on this one. Basically, yeah, I mean, yeah. And as usual, if anything is going to be saved, I would rather it be the cooldown. I think pretty much everything else is easier to get than the cooldown. Excellent. I love that this one is cheap on the gold. All right, so we hit this. I swear to God, if it's whatchamacallit, if it's friggin' low tier cooldown, shoot, even if it's high tier cooldown, what am I supposed to do with that? At some point, I need a base that doesn't have high tier cooldown on it. So let's hit it. All right, avoid being shocked. Perfect. Perfect. It's generic. It's just meant to be eaten. I go ahead and make sure that both of my bases are multi-modded up. I've got the one with prefixes and cooldown. I've got the one with prefixes and generic Crusader mod. And then it's time to recombine again. All right. We rapidly approach the part of the craft where I am getting exhausted. And we'll have to take a break if this does not pan out. But first, we attempt to recombine this one, which has life, ward, and cooldown, plus some meta mods with this one that has life and the random Crusader mod, plus some exclusive mods. The chances of that succeeding are, again, pretty high. Not 100%, but pretty high. But then we do the Orb of Dominance again, which is coin flip 50-50, and it's ugly because you saw what happens if we 50-50 and fail again. Like, oh my God, we gotta source so much new stuff. So I take a break and go farm something else. Maybe go actually level the character at that point. But let's go to King's March and maybe we'll get lucky. Recom. We'll just double check everything before we hit the button. Was in a no reflect map, hence the no frost blink. Okay. Just double check everything. You have got prefix, prefix, suffix, suffix, suffix on the left, and on the right we've got prefix, 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 suffix, suffix, suffix. Again, we've got very good odds of success. What do we define success as? Life, ward, cooldown, and chance to avoid being shocked, all in the same item. Let's recombine them. Ward, life, cooldown, shock. That part is a success. Good. We are now down to the 50-50 again. Do I elevate the chance to be shocked or the cooldown recovery rate? If we can elevate cooldown recovery, we're basically done. I'll multi-mod the item and call it a day. So let's go. Close our eyes as Chris intended and slam. Done. 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 Thank goodness. Now, unfortunately, I will have to divine it. I think I'll check my exact math. Let's see, I need to hit 26 or 27. I have to divine it, I think, to be at least 18. Only reason that's unfortunate is because I'm going to likely lose the 100% increased ward. But, whew, wowzers. I'm not going to multi-mod it quite yet because I want to put the character all together and make sure I know what my desired suffix is going to be. It's either going to be dexterity or much more likely a resistance that I'm going to have to suffix wrap. Now, do I want to wait to divine it until I do that? Maybe? Because theoretically we could be talking about the prefix being a movement speed with a variable. So I'm definitely not going to do this because I'm going to be getting hit by myself all the time. Onslaught on kill is probably the play here. Yeah. And honestly, the difference between 18 and 20 is so low, I might just divine it first. This is, yeah. Might just divine it first. We're shooting for 18 and above on the cooldown recovery rate. And so there's not a high range. It's 60, 70, 18, 19, 20. It's a range of 5, and we can accept any 3 of those 5 results. What do we get? We hit max life on that one, but no go. We hit max ward on that one, but no go. Need 18. There's 18, 116, which is kind of bad for life. Do we keep divining it and hope for higher life? Yes. Okay. So that's going to give me 261 ward, and the version that I would have had, I had 271 ward mapped out for this. So this is very close to as good as I was possibly going to get. So I'll multi-mod this at a different time once I figure out whether I want a resistance or dex or what in the suffix slot. But there you have it. Convoluted. But that actually does it on the gear. Wow, I think the only thing I've got to do left, and this shouldn't be too expensive, is I've got to buy up some 2 dust jewels. It's a ward loop build. My skeletons need to be dying. Yeah, I got to buy up some 2 dust jewels, but everything else, gloves, body armor, jewels, cluster jewels, flasks, my weapon. This weapon is the whole reason that I'm running this build. So this was supposed to be a cold build, and I was prepping for recombination. I was prepping staffs with the synthesized chance to explode mod, and so I had the cold spells all ready to go for traditional cold ward loop. You know, Ice Spear, Freezing Pulse, Creeping Frost, and I just wanted to recombine it with something that had +2 to all spell skill gems. And fortunately or unfortunately, take your pick, I rolled something natively that had +2 all spell, +3 chaos, and a little bit of spell damage, and I was like, well, guess we're pivoting to a chaos version of the build. So I still have the other one on deck if I ever want to experiment with the cold version. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for tuning in. Happy I got it. Take it easy.